3 goals, 22 minutes. Manchester City destroyed. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not like this. Real Madrid came into this Champions League tie with Mbappe, Bellingham, and Rodrigo all injured. They'd lost 2 league games in a row. They needed a last-minute deflection just to beat Celta Vigo the weekend before. City were the favorites. The bookies had Madrid as underdogs at their own stadium. Then Federico Valverde walked onto the pitch at the Bernabéu and rewrote his entire story in one unforgettable half. Before this match, Valverde had scored just 3 Champions League goals in his entire career. 3, in 75 appearances. He wasn't a goal scorer. He was the engine, the workhorse, the player who did the dirty work while others collected the headlines. Then came Wednesday night. The first goal arrived in the 20th minute. Courtois launched a long ball forward, the kind Ederson made famous. It dropped over O'Reilly's head. Valverde took it in his stride with a touch of pure class, rounded Donnarumma, and squeezed a finish home from a brutally tight angle. Cool, composed, clinical. City had barely recovered when, 7 minutes later, Valverde struck again. A Vinicius pass deflected into his path, but there was nothing fortunate about what came next. He clipped a low, left-footed shot, his weaker foot, beyond Donnarumma before the goalkeeper could set himself. 2-0, then came the third. 3 minutes before halftime. This one was something else entirely. Brahim Diaz chipped a brilliant ball into the box. Valverde brought it down with a touch of outrageous quality, flicked it past Marguerite, and volleyed home as Donnarumma rushed off his line. The Bernabéu erupted. The teams walked off at halftime to the sound of an entire stadium chanting his name. It was only the 5th first-half hat-trick in Champions League knockout history. The first against English opposition since Lionel Messi did it to Arsenal 16 years ago. And here's the detail that tells you everything about what kind of player Valverde is. He also made more tackles than anyone else on the pitch that night. 4 tackles. Twice as many as any other hat-trick scorer in the Champions League this decade. He scored 3 goals. And he was still the hardest working player on the field. That is the Valverde paradox. He finishes like a striker and defends like a holding midfielder. In the same match. On the same night, he scores a hat-trick against the best team in England, and that's exactly the problem Europe has. How do you prepare for a player who doesn't have a position? On paper, he's a midfielder, sometimes a right-back. But then suddenly he's leading the line, making runs in behind, arriving in the box at the exact right moment. 1 minute he's pressing in the corner flag, the next he's sprinting down the wing. Then somehow he's there, unmarked, composed, finishing. City had Erling Haaland available. They had Bernardo Silva, they had Doku, and none of it mattered because Valverde was everywhere they weren't. After the match, Valverde spoke with his usual honesty. "It's incredible, you always dream of nights like this," he told Movistar. "I had fun tonight. It's been a long time since I enjoyed a game like I did this one." When asked about his freedom to attack, he was just as direct. "I try to get forward. That's what the coach asks of me, to attack. Today we had more players to control the ball, so I tried to attack more, and they gave me some incredible passes." But here's what most people don't understand about Valverde. This wasn't a one-off. This was the culmination of months of evolution and years of character. Trent Alexander-Arnold, speaking after the match, put it plainly. He called Valverde the most underrated player on the planet. And when you watch what he does week after week, it's almost impossible to argue. This season across all competitions, Valverde has 6 goals and 12 assists in 39 games. But stats have always undersold him. They capture what he produces. They can't capture how he produces it. The relentless pressing, the recovery runs, the tackles that stop attacks before they start, the willingness to do whatever the team needs at any given moment. Joe Hart, watching from the TNT Sports studio, was still trying to process what he'd just seen. Manchester City played like they were decimated with injuries tonight. People playing out of position, people kind of forced in. I think Pep smelt blood tonight. He wanted to load up heavy and put the tie to bed, but he got a rude awakening. Rudiger stepped up, but the captain was the main man tonight. They had 3 18-year-olds on the pitch. This was a hell of a performance. Wow, wow, wow. One of the best, because of the personnel they had tonight. That word kept coming up. Captain. Because Valverde wasn't just brilliant on Wednesday, he was the leader. The one who carried Madrid when their stars were missing. And Madrid have known for a long time that they have a Madridista for life. Cast your mind back to the 2020 Super Cup semi-final. In the 114th minute, with his team under pressure, Morata broke through on goal. Valverde, the nearest player, had a split-second decision to make. He fouled him, took the red card, gave his team a chance to hold on. They drew the game, won on penalties, and lifted the trophy. Diego Simeone called it the most important play of the match. Not a goal, not a save, a sacrifice. Valverde never lost his starting place again. But to truly understand why this City performance means so much, you have to understand the road he's been on to get here. He didn't arrive at Madrid and walk straight into the team. He started at Castilla, was sent on loan to Deportivo La Coruña, a team that got relegated while he was there, came back, impressed, and worked his way into the first team 1 inch at a time. His official Bernabéu debut came on October 23, 2018. He was 20 years old, and then, year after year, new stars kept arriving. Tchouaméni, Camavinga, then Bellingham, then Mbappé. Each time, the question was the same. Where does Valverde fit? Each time, he answered it on the pitch. Earlier this season, Xabi Alonso deployed him as an emergency right-back. Valverde publicly voiced his frustration and drew criticism for appearing reluctant to warm up in the away game at Kairat Almaty. It wasn't his finest moment. But when Arbeloa came in and restored him to central midfield, Valverde responded the way he always does, with his feet. Last week, a 94th-minute winner against Celta Vigo to keep Madrid's title hopes alive. This week, a Champions League hat-trick against the Premier League's finest. Arbeloa, speaking after the final whistle, reached for the highest comparison he could find in Madrid's history. He is the Juanito of the 21st century. Valverde is everything a Real Madrid player should be. For Madrid fans, that's not just a compliment. Juanito was the soul of Real Madrid, the fighter, the warrior, the player who bled for the badge. To hear that name spoken in connection with Valverde was to understand exactly what he means to this club. And Valverde's versatility is what makes him almost impossible to game plan against. He has played every position down the right side for Real Madrid. Right midfielder, right winger, right back. He has the engine of an athlete, the technical quality of a number 10, and the tactical intelligence to function at the highest level wherever he's asked to play. But the growth hasn't stopped there. 5 years ago, Valverde was an elite runner with basic finishing. Then came the long-range shooting. Then the positional intelligence. Then the leadership. Then the clutch gene, the ability to score the goal that matters in the moment that matters. And now, in the 2025-26 Champions League, hat-tricks against the best teams in Europe. He is 27 years old, not a teenager with potential, not a veteran on borrowed time, 27, the absolute peak of his athletic and footballing powers. And every year, he adds something new. As the cameras found Bellingham in the stands after the final whistle, watching from the stands due to injury, the look on his face said everything: disbelief, admiration, something close to awe. Because what Valverde did on Wednesday night was join rare company in Champions League history, and he did it not as a striker, not as a forward, but as a midfielder who also tackles, presses, creates, and apparently scores hat-tricks against whoever gets in his way. On the touchline at full time, Pep Guardiola stood with his arms crossed, deep in thought. He'd tried everything: tactical adjustments, personnel changes, different approaches across 90 minutes. Nothing worked. He spoke to reporters afterwards with a rare admission of helplessness. Now, not much, but I'm not a guy to say we're not going to try. Now, it is the most difficult moment, but our mindset is we will look at what to do better. 3 goals down. Away from home at the Etihad in the second leg, Haaland and the cavalry available. City will make it a game. But here's the thing about Real Madrid. They have a player who has spent his entire career being doubted, overlooked, underestimated, and responding every single time. Liverpool tried to exploit his positioning. He assisted and scored. Barcelona tried to press him high. He broke their press and launched counters. Manchester City tried to contain him. He scored a hat-trick. You can't prepare for him because he plays 5 positions at an elite level. You think he's at right back. He's suddenly in your box. You think he's tracking your winger. He's already in space 30 yards forward, arriving late into the area like a striker who's been doing it his whole life. And the scary part? He's not peaking. He's still evolving. Europe has got a Valverde problem. And right now, nobody has a solution.